Podgorica is the capital and largest city of Montenegro. The city was also called Titograd Tito Radi, from 1946 to 1992 during the existence of SFR Yugoslavia, and before that Duklja, Dikli or Dioclea and Zeta. Podgorica's favorable position at the confluence of the Ribnica and Moroke rivers and the meeting point of the fertile Zeta Plain and Bjelopavlisi Valley has encouraged settlement. The city is close to winter ski centers in the north and seaside resorts on the Adriatic Sea. The city's population was 204,877 in the 2011 census. The Podgorica municipality contains 10.4% of Montenegro's territory, and 29.9% of its population. It is the administrative center of Montenegro and its economic, cultural and educational focus. Etymology. The name Podgorica means below Gorica in Montenegrin. Gorica is the name of the cypress-covered hill that overlooks the city center. Some 3 kilometers northwest of Podgorica lie the ruins of Dikli, a town known in Greek, pre-Roman and Roman times. The Roman Emperor Diocletian came from this region. In later centuries, Romans corrected the name to Diocle, guessing wrongly that an I had been lost in vulgar speech. Duklja is the later version of that word. When founded, the town was called Burzaminium. In the Middle Ages, it was known as Ribnica. The name Podgorica was used from 1326. From 1946 to 1992, the city was named Titograd in honor of Josip Broz Tito, the former president of Yugoslavia. History. Podgorica is at the crossroads of several historically important routes, near the rivers Zeta, Moroke, Sigevna, Ribnica, Sitnica and Mareza in the valley of Lake Skadar and near the Adriatic Sea, in fertile lowlands with favorable climate. The earliest human settlements were in prehistory. The oldest physical remains are from the Late Stone Age. In the Illyrian Age, the area between the Zeta and Bjelopavlisi valleys was occupied by 2 Illyrian tribes, the Labiates and the Decletes. The population of the city was 8,000–10,000, in which all core urban issues were resolved. The high population density radius was made possible by the geographical position, favorable climate and economic conditions, and by the defensive positions that were of great importance at that time. From the 5th century AD, with the arrival of the first Slavic and Avar tribes and the beginning of the breakup of the Roman Empire, the area bore witness to many noteworthy events. With time, the fortifications ceased their function and new towns were built. Slavic groups in the area were in constant war with Byzantium and tended to establish a new state. The result was establishment of a new settlement that was probably named after the Ribnica River on whose banks it was built. The first mention of Ribnica is during the rule of the Serbian royal family of the Nemanjići. The importance of Ribnica was its position as crossroads in communications with the West. The name Podgorica was first mentioned in 1326 in a court document of the Kota archives. The city was economically strong. Trade routes between Dubrovnik and the state of Nemanjići, well developed at that time, were maintained via the road that led to Podgorica through Trabinj and Nikšić. As a busy crossroads, Podgorica was a vibrant regional center of trade and communication. This boosted its development, economic power, military strength and strategic importance. The Ottoman capture of Podgorica in 1474 interrupted its economic, cultural and artistic development. Podgorica became a Kazar of the Sanjak of Scutari in 1479. The Ottomans built a large fortress in Podgorica, and the existing settlement, with its highly developed merchant connections, became the main Ottoman defensive and attacking bastion in the region. At the beginning of 1474 there were informations about intention of Ottoman Sultan to rebuild Podgorica and Balek and settle them with 5,000 Muslim families in order to establish an additional obstacle to cooperation between the Principality of Zeta and Venetian Shkoda. The fortified city, with towers, gates and defensive ramparts, enabled the Ottomans to resist all attacks. In 1864, Podgorica became a casa of the Scutari Vilaye called Bogetlan, Blackberry. It was also known as Burguris in Albanian. The Berlin Congress in 1878 annexed Podgorica to Montenegro, marking the end of 4 centuries of Ottoman rule, and the beginning of a new era in the development of Podgorica and of Montenegro. The city developed quickly and became a strong marketplace. The first forms of capital concentration were seen. In 1904, Zetska Savings Bank, the first significant financial institution, was formed. It would soon grow into Podgorica Bank. Roads were built to all neighboring towns and, in 1902, a tobacco plant became Podgorica's first significant commercial company. World War I marked the end of dynamic development for Podgorica, by then the largest city in the newly proclaimed Kingdom of Montenegro. Podgorica was occupied, as was the rest of the country, by Austria-Hungary from 1916 to 1918. After the liberation by the Allies in 1918, a controversial Podgorica assembly was held at Podgorica Tobacco Monopoly Building. The assembly marked the end of Montenegrin statehood, as Montenegro was merged with Serbia and incorporated in the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. Between the 2 world wars, the population of Podgorica was about 13,000. Podgorica suffered heavily during World War II. The city was bombed over 70 times throughout the course of the war and razed to the ground, causing the deaths of over 4,100 people. The city was liberated on 19 December 1944. Under the name of Titograd, the city became the capital of the Socialist Republic of Montenegro on 13 July 1946. A period of unprecedented expansion followed, which marked the SFRY era. The population increased dramatically, the city was heavily industrialized, infrastructure was improved, and health, educational, and cultural institutions were founded. The city rapidly became the commercial, socio-economic, and cultural center of the country. The progress halted again when the breakup of SFRY began in the 1990s. The name of Podgorica was reinstated on 2 April 1992. The destructive Yugoslav wars bypassed Montenegro, but the entire country was greatly affected economically. A period of severe economic stagnation lasted throughout the 1990s. The economy began to recover in the early years of the 21st century, when Podgorica began to emerge as a modern, pro-Western city. Following the successful independence referendum in May 2006, Podgorica became the official capital of an independent state, boosting its status as a regional center and raising its economic prospects. Today Podgorica is the seat of Montenegro's parliament and government, but not of the country's president, who resides in the former royal capital Cetinje. Geography. Podgorica is located in central Montenegro. The area is crossed with rivers and the city itself is only 15 kilometers north of Lake Skadar. The Morache and Ribnica rivers flow through the city, while the Zeta, Sijevna, Sitnica and Maraza flow nearby. Morache is the largest river in the city, being 70 meters or 230 feet wide near downtown, and having carved a 20 meters or 66 feet deep canyon for the length of its course through the city. Save for the Morache and Zeta, other rivers have an appearance of small creeks. The richness in bodies of water is a major feature of the city. In contrast to most of Montenegro, Podgorica lies in a mainly flat area at the northern end of the Zeta plain, at an elevation of 40 meters. The only exceptions are hills which overlook the city. The most significant is 130.3 meters high Gorica Hill, city's namesake, which rises above the city center. The other hills include Malo Brdo, Velj Brdo, Lubavitch and Ajbabska Gora. In the main, these are too steep for development and thus limit the city's expansion, especially to the north. However, urbanization has been encroaching on the lower slopes of the hills since 1990s. Podgorica city proper has an area of 108 square kilometers, while actual urbanized area is much smaller. Climate under the Köppen climate classification. Podgorica has a borderline Mediterranean climate and humid subtropical climate. Since there is only one summer month with less than 40 millimeters of precipitation, with hot, moderately dry, wet summers and cool winters. Although the city is only some 35 kilometers north of the Adriatic Sea, an arm of the Mediterranean, Rumia Mountain acts as a natural Dinaric Alps barrier, separating Skadar Lake Basin and Podgorica area from the sea, thus limiting temperate maritime influence on the local climate. The mean annual rainfall is 1,600 millimeters. The temperature exceeds 25 degrees Celsius on about 135 days each year and the median daily temperature is 15.6 degrees Celsius. The number of rainy days is about 120, and those with a strong wind around 60. An occasional strong northerly wind influences the climate in the winter, with a wind chill effect lowering the perceived temperature by a few degrees. Podgorica is particularly known for its extremely hot summers. Temperatures over 40 degrees Celsius are common in July and August. The highest temperature recorded in Montenegro was 45.8 degrees Celsius, on the 16th of August 2007. Snow is a rare occurrence in Podgorica. It rarely snows more than a few days per year. In February 2012, Podgorica had a snow cover for a record 25 days. The all-time maximum snowfall record was beaten on the 11th of February, when 58 centimeters of snowfall were measured. Before that, the biggest snowfall in Podgorica was in 1954, when 52 centimeters of snowfall were recorded. Cityscape. Podgorica's mixture of architectural styles reflects the turbulent history of the city and country. As one regime replaced another, the corresponding style was introduced. As part of the Ottoman Empire until 1878, Podgorica has many examples of Turkish architecture. The oldest parts of the city, Stara and Drak, are typical of this, with two mosques, a Turkish clock tower and narrow, winding streets. When the city was incorporated to Montenegro, the urban core shifted to the other bank of the Ribnica River, where the town developed in a more European style, wider streets with an orthogonal layout. This part of the city is today traditionally regarded as city center, and is called Nova Varos during World War II. Podgorica was almost razed to the ground, being bombed over 70 times. After liberation, rebuilding began as in other cities of the communist-ruled SFRY. Mass residential blocks were erected, with basic design typical of Eastern Bloc countries. All that part of the city on the right bank of the Moroke River was built this way. Even the empty spaces in the city center were filled with near-brutalist structures, resulting in an unfortunate fusion of old and new. The residential and business blocks of the SFRY era provided ample housing but have been much criticized for their uninventive and grey appearance. The main contemporary traffic arteries were laid out during this period, which extended the orthogonal street layout of city center to the south and west. Residential and infrastructural developments in the SFRY era have mostly shaped the layout of today's Podgorica, and accommodated the unprecedented population growth that followed World War II. However, in area surrounding residential blocks, the city expanded in a form of often chaotic urban sprawl, with densely built private lorries dwellings leaving little space for streets and sidewalks. The trend of sprawling informal settlements was at peak during the 1990s. Efforts have been made since to improve the infrastructure of those settlements, but many problems remain, especially in large Lorries neighborhoods in north and northeast Podgorica. A major advance in Podgorica architecture began in the late 1990s and, since then, the face of the city has changed rapidly. Residential and business construction are proceeding rapidly, incorporating contemporary glass and steel architectural trends. In an effort to create a recognizable and modern state capital, city officials are routing significant investments in city's public spaces. Thus, the city has gained entirely new squares, parks and monuments. New landmarks include the Ristavog Vasksanur Orthodox Temple and the Millennium Bridge, the main feature of the Podgorica skyline. Podgorica today is transforming from a featureless town to a modern European capital. Culture, entertainment, and performing arts. Podgorica is home to many Montenegrin cultural institutions and events. It hosts the Montenegrin National Theatre and a number of museums and galleries. The Montenegrin National Theatre is the most significant theatre not only in Podgorica but in all of Montenegro. Podgorica is also host to the City Theatre, which includes the Children's Theatre and the Puppet Theatre. Although not as rich in museums and galleries as the historic royal capital Cetinje, there are several noteworthy museums. The Podgorica City Museum preserves Podgorica's rich heritage. Founded in 1950, it has 4 categories: archaeological, ethnographic, historical and cultural. Historical. It houses artifacts which date back to the Roman and Illyrian eras. The Archaeological Research Center was founded in 1961. Its mission is to gather, classify, restore and display archaeological sites. The Marko Miljanov Museum in Medun shows life in 19th-century Montenegro. It is the most significant Montenegrin memorial museum of its kind. The Natural History Museum displays specimens of Montenegrin flora and fauna. This museum has no exhibition space of its own, despite many proposals and initiatives to build one. There is a notable art gallery in the Dvorak Petrovica complex in Podgorica's largest public park. King Nicholas's Castle, Pajaniki Dom, Castle Chapel, and surrounding buildings were converted to an art gallery in 1984. Since 1995, it has been part of the Modern Arts Center and houses approximately 1,500 works of art. The Historic Cinema of Culture, which was founded in 1949, was closed in November 2008 due to continuous financial losses it generated. It was the only cinema in the city for 6 decades. The building of the former cinema will be converted to host the Podgorica City Theatre. Shortly after its closure, a Sturkinica 6-screen multiplex cinema opened at Delta City Shopping Mall. A significant cultural institution of over 50 years standing is the Budo Tomovic Cultural Informational Center. It is a public institution which organizes various artistic events, including Podgorica Cultural Summer, Fiat, International Alternative Theatre Festival, Deus, December Arts Scene. KIC Budo Tomovic was a host for such names as Tony Parsons or Brooklyn Funk Essentials during their visits to Podgorica. Media. Podgorica is undoubtedly the media hub of Montenegro. It is home to the headquarters of the state-owned public television broadcaster RTCG. Commercial broadcasters in Podgorica include TV In, NTV Montana, Elmag RTV, RTV Atlas, TV Vigesta and MBC. It was announced that the city's local television will be launched soon. Their programs can be received in much of Montenegro. All Montenegro's daily newspapers are published in Podgorica, as is the popular weekly magazine Monitor. Sports. The most popular sports by far are football and basketball. Basketball became especially popular with the success in the late 20th and early 21st centuries of KK Budućnost Podgorica, both in Yugoslav and European competitions. Football in Podgorica has a long tradition associated with FK Budućnost Podgorica. World-famous players Predrag Mijatovic and Dejan Savicevic were born in Podgorica and made their debut in that team. FK Zeta has also reached the former First League of Serbia and Montenegro. These clubs, along with FK Mogran of Budva, usually compete with each other for leading position in the First League of Montenegro. Other clubs from Podgorica and its surroundings play in the Montenegrin First League, e.g., FK Desic, FK KOM and FK Miladost. One of the most popular clubs from the suburbs is FK Ribnica from Konuk. Budućnost Podgorica is the most important sports club in Podgorica. Its name means future. Chess is another popular sport, and some famous global chess players, like Slavko Dedić, are born in Podgorica. Sporting events like the annual Podgorica Marathon and the Morache River Jumps attract international competitors. Podgorica was the host of 2009 FINA Men's Water Polo World League. Venues. Podgorica has a number of sporting venues. Some are under reconstruction and expansion. The main ones are Podgorica City Stadium. When the eastern stand is completed, it will have a capacity of 24,000. It is the home of FK Budućnost Podgorica and the Montenegro national football team. It is currently the only venue in Montenegro that complies with FIFA standards for international football matches. Morache Sports Center, a multifunctional indoor sport facility. It has a capacity of 4,200 seats. It hosted one group of Eurobasket 2005, while other games were played in Belgrade, VRSAC, and Novi Sad. Almost every football club in Podgorica has its own stadium, although these are often only fields with small stands or no stands at all. Other notable venues are the Stadion Malay Sportover under Gorica Hill and the sports shooting range under Lubavitch Hill. There are many other sports facilities around the city, most notably indoor soccer fields.